Hello and welcome to the Custom House Street webinar. We're here to talk to you about a new exciting development by Watkin Jones. In a moment, I'm going to hand over to Ian, who will lead the presentation. But first, I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Kath.
Helo, croeso. Felly mae'r webinar heddi mynd I fod yn y Saesneg, ond os hoffai unrhyw un gofyn cwestiynau yn y Gymraeg, gallen ni helpu gyda hynny, a na I cyfieithu'r cwestiynau a cael nhw wedi ateb. Diolch yn fawr. So I have just said that the webinar today is going to be in English, but if anybody has any questions in Welsh, I'm happy to translate them and we can respond then accordingly.
Lovely. Thank you, Kath. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Ian Smith now from Watkin Jones, and there's a question and answer section that we can answer at the end if required. Thank you, Ian.
Thank you, Marcel. Thanks, Chris. I'm Ian Smith, Plan Director at the Watkin Jones Group. I'm here to explain today a little bit about who Watkin Jones Group PLC is and the type of development that we're proposing here, namely co-living. This slide in front of you shows the team that's working behind the scheme, and we've been in pre-application discussions with Cardiff City Council now for approximately 6 months. But it really just demonstrates that we're working with a number of local companies in bringing this scheme together, but also bringing together all the more technical elements of the scheme, so that once plan permission is granted, there will be an immediately deliverable development. Next slide, please. So, Watkin Jones Group PLC Fresh. We were established as a business back in 1791, so 235 years ago now. And we've been building homes for approximately 100 years. We are a specialist residential for rent developer and operator. And what I mean by that is the main part of our business is delivering rental homes, either in the form of purpose-built managed student accommodation, co-living, which is what's proposed for Custom House Street, or build-to-rent homes. So some form of flatted or apartment type development, and that's UK-wide. And alongside that, we're also a house builder, typically in North Wales and across the northwest of England, and with a focus in that area on affordable and single-family homes. So similar to the flatted developments, albeit conventional houses, as it were. We're also an operator of these development types through Fresh, which already operates within Cardiff, but also more extensively across the UK. Our business model is unique. We are, as it says on the screen there, a one-stop enabler of institutional investment in housing through acquisition, planning, development, funding, and construction and operation. Putting that on a more real level, when it comes down to a site level, what that means is we acquire sites subject to planning permission. We will go and get those planning permissions. Once planning permission has been granted, we will acquire the site and we'll look to build the site. At that point in time, we also sell the developments, typically to well-known institutional funds. So if you look at what we've done in Cardiff, as an example, our Bridge Street Exchange Student Accommodation Scheme, which was completed about 5 years ago, was sold to American Insurance Group, or AIG as it's more commonly known. And we're also working in partnership with Legal & General on the BTR development of approximately 750 homes down on the former Brains Brewery site by the train station. So what that then means is we are also the construction party here, and once the development's complete, typically Fresh on the owner's behalf, the institutional owner's behalf, will manage the completed development. Now that has a number of benefits. Number one, it means that us, who will be here for now and for the for the foreseeable future in this development. So if there's any queries, any questions during the construction period, we're in hand. Our construction team are always available to answer those. But it also means that once we have completed developments and they're operational, the information and responses and the likes that we receive from residents feeds back into the design of new schemes. What the images or infographics across the bottom of this slide show is that over the last 25 years, there or thereabouts, we've developed 60,000 residential for rent homes all across the UK, as shown with the pins on the map. That started in the students' accommodation area and evolved into the build to rent. We've been delivering build to rent homes now for about 10 to 12 years, and more recently in co-living. We've actually got 3 co-living schemes that are completed and operational, those being in Exeter, Bristol and Wembley. We've just received planning permission for one in Leeds, and there's several more going through various stages of the planning process. Fresh, our operational arm, is multi-award winning, has fantastic satisfaction survey ratings from residents, and they manage approximately 20,000 homes across those 3 tenures across the UK. But this business model also means that we have an exceptional delivery record, meaning that 95% of developments are on site within 6 months of the grant permission. And what you're seeing in front of you today, and we'll briefly touch on the timeline towards the end of the presentation, is that a development, subject to receiving planning permission in this autumn, we're proposed to start the development in advance of Christmas this year, and it with a 140-week or 2.5 year build period completed in the summer of 2028. Next slide, please, Chris. So just reflecting back, as I mentioned a few moments ago, on what has Watkin Jones done in Cardiff. I think it's fair to say regionally, sub-regionally, and over the other side of Severn, we've completed a number of developments now in Cardiff, Swansea, Bath, Bristol, amongst a variety of cities and towns across the UK. We're focusing locally. On the left-hand side, you've got a CGI or computer-generated image of the Central Quay scheme that we're doing in partnership, or delivering, in partnership with Legal & General. That's 750 build-to-rent apartments across a variety of sizes or bedroom numbers, which will be completed in 2028. In the middle, we've got the Bridge Street Exchange Students' Accommodation Scheme with ground floor commercial space and an alcohol treatment centre. In similarity with the development that's in front of you today, this was developed and designed by Rio Architects. Chris Taylor's on this call and will be running through the scheme later. And it's won a number of awards, including the RICS Wales Residential Capital Award 2019. And on the right, development that we've not delivered or we're not delivering per se. And that's the previous consent for the subject site. So back in 2016, we obtained planning permission for a students' accommodation scheme on the subject site, 42 stories in height. For various reasons, that scheme wasn't delivered. But about 3 years ago, we went on to implement the planning permission, which means that we can then, it can be delivered, it remains extant and it can be delivered at any point in the future. Next slide, please, Chris. So what is co-living? As I mentioned earlier, it is something we have built, we operate elsewhere. So we've got quite a lot of learnings from what it is and who it is and who's in there. But it's fair to say that it is a type of residential that has been around for about a decade now. Started off in London and has become, is being developed across a number of UK cities and towns. Indeed, in Cardiff, our scheme will be the third of such schemes. With one scheme, the first scheme, Knox Courts near the prison, being granted consent last year for about 200 co-living units, and the same developer having recently submitted a scheme elsewhere. But who occupies co-living? Before I go into what is co-living, it's typically a form of homes or accommodation for postgraduates. The typical group of people who live in there are between 21 to 35 years olds. It's a very socially focused form of living, and it's very popular with postgraduates who don't want to live in HMOs because they've lived in those went to university and feel they're earning the first salary and they want something a little bit better than that, but can also don't want to, or so should I say, can't afford to live in city centre apartments. It sort of fits in the middle. It's something that's really social, really enables them to engage with like-minded individuals and to benefit from a working and living experience that comes together with that. It's fair to say also that within our schemes, residents are much older than that. It does appeal to a variety of other groups of staff. We found retirees moving into our Exeter scheme who have, decided to sell the family home wants to live in the city centre, close to amenities, various facilities, shops, services, leisure, cultural, etc. So it is a very attractive form of accommodation. What's different? So what is co-living? What does it look like? It contains a number of studios, and those studios are smaller than you may find in other forms of residential development, but larger than what a student will get. And they have a double bed, settee, seating area for people two people to dine or work, a small kitchenette, and a bathroom as well, an ensuite bathroom. And that allows people to, live, sleep in the room, cook basic meals and the likes. But what the differentiator with co-living is there's vast areas of amenity facilities, shown by the infographics here, across the building, allowing people to really live a social form of engaging with a lot of different people. Well, what's proven to be extremely popular in this form of development is communal kitchens. Lots of cook stations in these, people cooking, dining together, getting to know each other, private dining spaces allowing people to have dinner parties on a Saturday evening and the like. Rents are all inclusive, so all the services you see on screen in front of you are included. Separate membership, people don't need to obtain separate gym memberships, that's provided on site. All utilities are included, council tax included. It's almost a one-stop, as it were, from a cost perspective. And then support-wise, for these schemes to work well, they need to be supported by very strong operational management teams like Fresh, who arrange a variety of events and the likes going on all year, in response to different things that may be happening at different times of the year. And residents are encouraged to get involved, but often get involved. So the encouragement doesn't actually need to be that great. And alongside that, by having, well-trained operational companies, it also means that those companies and people in those companies can support residents if they have any issues, they are struggling in any way. They're trained to assist and to help, to signpost, to work with that person and to support them in any which way they can. I now hand over to Owen from Planning Consultant Lichfields, just to explain a bit as to why does Cardiff need co-living?
Thanks, Ian. So as Ian just touched on in terms of the core demographic for this type of use, and I think that's principally why Cardiff is a good location and has an identified need for this type of accommodation. Just around the site itself, sort of 1 kilometre around the site, 50% of the population is identified as aged between 15 and 34, which is about double the UK average. And if you take the Cateys ward itself, 30% of the population is identified as single householders, whereas only 20% of the housing in that ward actually only supports 1-bed accommodation. So as it stands in this part of Cardiff, there's a deficit for single householders, and not to mention the quality of the accommodation that is currently available. In addition to what's happening now, we have to look ahead of us and what might happen in the future. Cardiff's population is growing, and particularly projected in the younger population, 15 to 34, over the next 8 years is expected to grow by at least 7%. And it's important the city's able to provide the accommodation that the population needs. It's particularly important in Cardiff with its strong universities that we prevent the sort of brain drain of graduates moving away from the city after they finish university. It's vital that we keep the workforce here to support the existing businesses, but also so the city can attract new businesses and employers into it. And in addition, of course, it has the potential to release and move people out of existing HMO accommodation, particularly in the Cateys ward, enabling that to come back in as family accommodation in the local area rather than being split up into 1-bedders. So there's an opportunity to address a deficit as it stands for younger people in accommodation, project something forward and protect the future growth of the city, and potentially release family accommodation. So we think that it's a good fit for the city. Ian, I think maybe back to you to touch on a couple of examples.
Thanks, Owen. Yes, thanks for that. I think just to show a couple of examples of schemes that we have or are doing elsewhere. So our first co-living scheme, the Gorge in Exeter, which completed approximately 2 years ago, is a scheme of co-living studios with extensive amenity facilities. And what you see on the screen in front of you is some of those amenity facilities. On the top left, you've got a studio showing the facilities that you get in there. On the top right, one of these very popular communal kitchens, which are provided across these developments. In this particular development, it's one communal kitchen located on the ground floor, but of a significant size, and that's supported and supplemented by a variety of other amenity facilities, as shown in the infographic on an earlier slide, internal and external, are in and around the building. I think it's worth to say, at the bottom left-hand corner, you've got an overview from Home Views of this scheme, and the scheme has received excellent reviews from residents on that platform. What it just really demonstrates is how people view it. It is a community within itself, and by having a variety of not just the facilities that that are shown in front of you, the events, the support, it all comes together in a complete package, as it were. Next slide, please, Chris. So just now looking more at a scheme that has recently granted planning permission. This is one in Leeds. Construction will start shortly, and this development will be completed in 2028. This one contains 230 co-living studios, and again, a variety of high-quality internal and external facilities. Like Custom House Street, this is located right in the middle of the city centre, meaning that residents have access to all the facilities, amenities, shops, services and the likes that are found within a city centre. On the top left is a communal kitchen. This is a little bit different to what we showed at Exeter. It's smaller. There are a few of them in this scheme, like there will be in the Cardiff scheme, but they are of a sufficient size to ensure that people do come together, and they're not something that's smaller than one person may be using. They're sort of epicentres of activity across the scheme. And the images of the other three images, top right, bottom left and bottom right, just show what the rooms look like. Double beds, settee, sort of lounging area, as it were, dining and working area, kitchenette, so you can make smaller meals, snacks, but then go to communal kitchens to make larger meals, as it were. And then ensuite bathroom facilities on top of that. Next slide, please, Chris, and over to you.
So the site is located to the south of the city centre, adjacent to the mainline railway, on the junction of Bute Street, Custom House Street and Bute Terrace. As Ian touched on, there is an extant permission or an implemented permission on the site, but the site has lain empty for probably the last couple of decades. There have been various small buildings on it in the past, but nothing of any substance. The site is very close to Cardiff Central Railway Station and the new transport interchange. It's about a 5-minute walk, as well as in very close proximity to the shopping centre, as well as the entertainment centre within the city, and the stadium. Apologies. Also, the site provides a key link to the south of the city, where there's significant development with Central Quay, Atlantic Wharf, and the embankment developments, which are all progressing forward as Cardiff expands, as Owen touched on, with the increase in population. The site is in a very mixed urban context. There's a range of uses around, including a number of hotels, some office development and some residential, as well as the shops and various other public facilities as discussed. We're looking to put a dense development on this site. The city centre is appropriate for dense development to concentrate people within the city rather than spreading the boundaries of the city outside of the city centre. And this building will form a recognisable addition to Cardiff skyline We're not looking at something which is going to blend into the background. This is going to be an important building within Cardiff skyline. And this also aligns with Cardiff Council's regeneration goals and provides some residential accommodation within the city centre location. So starting down at the ground level, the site will regenerate this corner of Cardiff, which has been a little bit unloved over the last over a number of years. So we're looking to improve the public realm, introduce some soft landscaping as well as new hard landscaping, realigning an existing cycle route and bringing some life under the railway bridge through Hope Street and under the Bute Street railway bridge. And as I say, link this to the south of the railway line where the new Cardiff Metro proposals will be, and hopefully provide a much needed link into the south of the city. So in terms of the proposals for the site, obviously it is a constrained site. As you can see on the top left-hand corner, we're bounded by a number of roads, some of which are busy. It is a busy junction, Bute Street and Custom House Street. We're also adjacent to the main railway line. So looking at those constraints, we've explored the developable area of the site, which has brought it in slightly to allow pedestrian movement around the site, as well as the required servicing areas against the train line. There are also a number of services within the ground located at the site, including sewers and high voltage electricity lines. So taking all those constraints on board, we've developed or explored the developable area of the site, which has then been extruded to the height to allow, which we feel is appropriate and allows the significant development of this site and the viable development of this site. As Ian and Owen have touched on, co-living is dependent on the provision of significant shared amenity space within the building. Rather than focusing all this amenity space at the bottom of the building, we've looked to create this vertical village approach where the amenity spaces are spread throughout the tower, including areas at the top to take full advantage of the views of the city and down towards the bay and up towards the hills, as well as at the bottom end of the tower, so that it activates the streetscape and provides a new active frontage within the Cardiff city centre. We've also brought in a mid-level area, so as we'll see later on, no residents are more than 6 floors away from kitchen facilities and different amenity uses. And with the development of this scheme and the use of lifts, within sort of 80 seconds of your amenity space from wherever you are. And then we've developed a facade treatment, which we'll look at further on, creating something which is going to stand out in the Cardiff skyline. So again, going back to that amenity provision, bringing in lower level areas down at the ground floor, including some publicly accessible areas to the frontage, which will provide an active street escape at the lower levels. We're introducing co-working spaces, cooking and dining facilities, lounges, games rooms, and various other things which were picked up on the earlier slides. These areas will also include these amenity areas will also include areas of external space at the top of the building, at the base of the building, and in the middle of the tower, where we can connect the internal spaces to some sheltered external amenity areas where residents can get views across the city. Then going into the actual studios themselves, as Ian touched on earlier, the studios allow a degree of comfort for the residents. They provide a double bed, a small kitchenette, which allows some basic cooking facilities within your room, an ensuite shower room, plenty of storage, including wardrobes and storage under the bed, a flat screen TV, and some dining facilities and some soft furnishing facilities, as well as provision for coats and shoes. Into these amenity facilities, as I say, we're looking at spreading the amenity facilities throughout the building. At the ground floor, we've got a co-working cafe space, which will be publicly accessible during the day. This spreads up across 2 floors, will be accessed also by the residents, and provides some activity at the ground floor. It also houses the sort of entrance area and the management facilities of the building. Going up to the floor above, on level 2, we've got a laundry space, which also provides games rooms, which will allow residents to pass the time while their laundry's being done, and also a social and active space within the building, rather than a sterile and functional laundry facility. Then up to level 3, we've got a residence lounge, which provide different uses, some soft seating areas, and maybe some more active areas, including televisions, maybe small games facilities, and those sorts of areas. These provide lots of opportunity for residents to socialise. Whilst we've got these facilities spread throughout the building, we're not expecting them just to function for the local floors. We expect residents of the building to travel throughout the space to use all the different functions, depending on their uses and depending on the times of day and what they're doing to pass their time. Moving up the building on level 4, we've got a significant gym, including a yoga studio and some fitness areas. And then we've got some kitchen and dining facilities on the other side of the building. Going up to level 17, we've got significant shared kitchen dining facilities, a large open plan area to allow residents to gather, congregate in the heart of the building and access these terraces to go outside to drink, eat and socialise. And also in this area, we've got some private dining facilities, as Ian said, on an evening you may want to cater for a number of friends where you can rent or book out a space and you have that space to yourself rather than being in amongst all the other residents within the building. Up to the top of the building, we've got a large games room with some lounge space, again, creating activity, creating different areas within the building for residents to socialise and mingle rather than it all being loud or sort of noisy and congested spaces. There will be areas which are maybe quieter, maybe libraries, maybe reading spaces, arts and crafts facilities, and screening rooms as well to allow residents that variety of spaces throughout the building. At the very top of the building, there's a smaller lounge area which opens up onto a significant external amenity space which offers 270-degree views around the city from a very high vantage point. So this is the development within its context. As you can see, we've got the adjacent tall buildings, the Radisson Blu, Meridian Plaza, Alta Luso on the right-hand side, and then the recently completed Premier Inn over to the left. This building sits well within the skyline, but does provide a differential point, being slightly taller and not just sort of contributing to a mid-level within the city. And then looking from the opposite direction, again, more hotels. What the Marriott Customer Street, the railway line is very close to the building. And then as we go to the south, there's the developments to the south of the railway line, including Zenith and the Copper Works and various other schemes, which are all developing and provide evidence of this continued development of Cardiff city centre. Some views now with the building in context. So this is the building sitting within a nighttime view of the building sitting within the landscape. I'll go through these and then the building during the day, looking from the rear of John Lewis along Butte Terrace. A nighttime view from the rear of the Marriott, looking again along Custom House Street towards the building. We've developed the design. Obviously, the floor plates are relatively standard with a number of rooms, but taking that gridded approach to a facade, which then opens up and breaks up where we've got the amenity spaces. So the amenity spaces can be read from afar and will provide activity within the facade and provide that legibility of the building's uses behind the facade. And especially opening up at the top of the building where we've got the opportunity for wider views across the city. And down at the base of the building, we've taken cues from the local
in March,
environment.
where again there'll be another opportunity to feedback via the council's website which has got a very intricate and interesting facade, including the use of terracotta tiles and arches within the windows, and also very conscious that we've got the railway line immediately adjacent to the south of the building. So we've taken those cues from the railway line, arches, the use of brick, a nod to the heritage of the site. It is an industrial part of Cardiff with this link to the railway line. So looking at how those arches and how we can use this to bring some human scale to the building at these lower levels where it's going to be active. There's going to be people entering and exiting the building and walking past the building throughout the day, and creating this new area of public landscape at the top of Hope Street, improving the cycle connection down through under the railway bridge, and creating this sort of small pocket park where we can bring in some landscaping and some seating areas. And then back over to Marcel, I think, for the last section. Yes, thank you. So we've just got a bit of information here about the timeline that we're working to and what happens next. So we've completed the kind of pre-planning design phase towards the end of last year, and just for these first couple of months of 2025, we're doing some information events, including meeting local members of the community and this webinar, and sending out information leaflets, and that's part of the non-statutory engagement. And then part of the formal statutory engagement, because we're in Wales, we have the PAC process. So that'll be for the month of February and March for those 28 days. There'll also be an opportunity to feedback on the plans or provide any comments once that draft planning application is online, which is available on the Custom House Street website. And then on this last slide, we just have some information about how to get in touch. So we have a feedback form online that you can fill in with any comments you have, the web address, and also a phone number that you can phone if that's preferred. And we have a free post address as well.